The little couple admitted a heartbreaking truth about parenting their adopted kids. But before we start, please give the video a like and make sure to subscribe to Wonderbot and hit the bell so you'll never miss any uploads from us. The little couples, Bill Klein and Jen Arnold, long dreamed of starting a family. And in 2013, they finally made their vision a reality. Bringing home adopted son Will and daughter Zoe didn't prove to be a trouble-free experience, though. Indeed, their little ones had to make tough transitions to their new lives, revealing some heartbreaking truths about adoption in the process. Of course, for anyone who emigrates to the US from another country, it isn't always easy to assimilate to a new culture. Both of Klein's and Arnold's children were born in other nations. The couple adopted Will from China, while Zoe came from India. And the kids seemed to have an especially tough time adjusting to their new lives, albeit each for different reasons. All of this came at a particularly tough time for Arnold and Klein, too. After years of miscarriages, she received a devastating health diagnosis. And as a result, she had to leave India during the process of adopting Zoe. The hard times continued when the family got home, however, and they opened up about all of them a few years after the fact. Married couple Bill Klein and Dr. Jennifer Arnold nabbed their own reality series on TLC called The Little Couple in 2009. According to TLC's official description of the show, the pair are just like your average couple, except for the fact that they're both under 4 feet tall. Klein and Arnold were born with skeletal dysplasia, or dwarfism, although they each have a different type of the condition. Businessman Klein has spondylophageal dysplasia, which affects the growth of his spine, as well as the ends of his bones. The congenital syndrome has required him to undergo at least 20 operations, and he stands at just 4 feet in height. Meanwhile, Arnold has spondylophageal dysplasia type Strudwick, named after the first patient diagnosed with the condition. It's a similar diagnosis to what her husband has, but different in the way it affects the ends of the bones. Arnold stands at a little over 3 feet tall, and she's had to undertake even more surgical procedures than her husband. In fact, the medical attention required due to their conditions brought Klein and Arnold together for the first time, although it would take years for them to fall in love. Klein described their first meeting to TLC, which happened when they were 10 years old. Each of them had traveled to a Baltimore area hospital for treatment. She was in for surgery and I was in for physical therapy, Klein recalled in a TLC segment. He also recalled his future wife's mood post-op, adding, "I remember that I was very happy when I saw her, but she was not in a good mood because she had just had surgery the day or two before." Surprisingly, Klein's recollection of their first meeting was so clear that he could even remember the room in which he met Arnold. For her part, however, Arnold admitted that she didn't remember the encounter at all. Nonetheless, she did say that her husband's description was accurate and she believed they had indeed met. "Everything he described about the day, me and the people in the room, was perfect," she said. Clearly, Klein and Arnold didn't keep in touch after that run-in, but they did almost meet again a decade later. At that time, they had the same doctor, and Arnold had her sights set on enrolling in medical school. So she shadowed her surgeon, something Klein was also doing. As such, the medical staff who saw both Klein and Arnold sensed the potential for a romantic connection. Arnold said, "They actually tried to set us up a few times, believe it or not." The pair never went out together, however. Indeed, they didn't even cross paths while they shadowed their shared doctor. "I never got to meet Klein because we did it at different times," Arnold explained. Thankfully, things would turn out differently the third time around for Arnold and Klein, although even that meeting almost didn't happen. Both the businessman and the doctor had accounts on a website called datealittle.com. "I wrote to her, but she wasn't paying the bill for the registration, so she couldn't read my email," Klein said. 3 months after that, Arnold finally decided to log back online with encouragement from her best friend and a glass of wine. She initially activated the account to find female friends, she said, but Arnold decided to message exactly one man on the website. "I searched all the profiles for young men my age with good jobs who weren't married, looking for love, and looking for people that I didn't already know," Arnold said. "I came across Bill's profile, so I sent him a random email and said, 'Have we ever met before at a Little People in America conference? You look familiar.' That was my great pickup line." The line worked, and Arnold and Klein subsequently started sharing phone calls. They lived in different cities at the time. Klein knew he had to go meet her in person, following around 6 weeks of them getting to know each other. In fact, he said Arnold had dozed off while talking to him, which meant she was either too comfortable or too bored. Klein had already fallen for Arnold, in fact, so he wanted to make sure she was on the same page. He took a flight to meet her in Pittsburgh, and the pair met up at Starbucks before going on an official date. Arnold recalled, "We had the longest conversation ever. It was awesome. I knew right away that this one was great." So despite still living in different parts of the US, Klein and Arnold embarked on a relationship. And in 2009, they made things official and married, before making a life together in Houston, Texas. There, Arnold held a pair of jobs. She was the director at Texas Children's Hospital Simulation Center, while also serving Baylor College of Medicine as a professor. Meanwhile, Klein had his hand in a slew of successful business ventures. Firstly, he worked in sales following the completion of his studies at New York University and worked his way up to management positions. Since then, he also started his own business selling his proprietary version of puppy pads for potty training dogs. Of course, Klein and Arnold have had their TV show to keep them busy too. The Little Couple has followed their lives since 2009. The show's opening episode included footage of the couple's wedding ceremony. Cameras then followed Klein as he moved from New York City to join Arnold in their new home of Houston, too. But The Little Couple doesn't just share Arnold and Klein's happy times. It also shows the difficulties they encounter, not just as little people, but also as a couple. For one thing, Arnold faced a serious health scare in 2013. That year, she found out that she had stage 3 choriocarcinoma, an uncommon form of uterine cancer. The cancer diagnosis highlighted another struggle that Arnold and Klein had faced. Choriocarcinoma typically grows from uterine tissue that would transform in the placenta during gestation. Heartbreakingly, Arnold had endured a miscarriage in September of 2013, just months before her cancer diagnosis. Moreover, earlier in 2013, Arnold had talked about her fertility struggles with people. "For a lot of people, loss tears them apart," she said. "In general, we're pretty tough people. We feel lucky and fortunate to have the wonderful life we have. We're good at putting things in perspective because of our life experiences." Thankfully, though, good news was on the horizon for Arnold and Klein. By February 2014, her doctors had handed down the best possible news, which she revealed to people. After having undergone her last chemo treatment, Arnold could announce that her cancer had gone into remission. "I'm doing great," she stated. "Everything is moving in the right direction." To that end, in spite of their longtime struggles with fertility, Arnold and Klein became parents twice over. In 2013, the couple officially adopted their first child from China, a son named Will. And within a few months, they were ready to add another member to their family, Zoe, a girl who originally came from India. Both Will and Zoe have types of dwarfism, just as their new parents do. In Will's case, his condition had reduced the chance that he'd be adopted at all. But that didn't put Klein and Arnold off. The couple then traveled to India with Will to bring Zoe home to Texas, and the new parents naturally looked forward to bonding with their little ones. Deciding to adopt marked a big change in Klein's way of thinking about parenthood. He admitted in 2018 that he had once had a selfish attitude about becoming a father. "I wanted a kid that was genetically mine," Klein said, but a reality check about how many kids needed homes and love changed his mind. "We talked about how many kids were out there that didn't have a home, that needed love and support from a family and were relegated to a life of institutionalization," Klein explained. "I think that I couldn't have done any better a job through surrogacy, through the old-fashioned way, or anything else. When I saw Will's and Zoe's pictures, I fell in love immediately." That love would help Klein and Arnold through some tough times that came as Will and Zoe adjusted to their new lives. Meanwhile, that transition took place in the midst of Arnold's cancer diagnosis and treatment, which interrupted her bonding process with Zoe. In fact, Arnold's health scare forced her home early from the trip to New Delhi, India, where they went to pick up Zoe. Before that, Arnold had already become close to Zoe, however. The little girl had yet to forge the same connection with Klein. So, as he wrote in the couple's 2016 book, Think Big, without her new mommy, Zoe was inconsolable. Trying to soothe Zoe only made things worse. Her cries echoed throughout the house. Zoe obviously wanted and needed her mother. After that, Klein brought Zoe back to the US on his own. But things didn't get any better. Indeed, after he introduced her to her new home in Texas, Zoe wailed next to the front door, he wrote. She didn't want anything to do with it, and she didn't want to be near her new daddy, the businessman added. From there, bonding with Zoe became tough for both Klein and Arnold. She really wanted nothing to do with us, the doctor admitted to People in 2017. On top of that, the couple also had to deal with Will's many health challenges. He had hearing difficulties and has undergone surgeries, Klein explained. Fortunately for Klein and Arnold, and Will and Zoe, the new family didn't give up on forging connections with one another. And it all paid off for them in the end, too. By 2017, the parents reported to People that they were blown away by the progress our children continue to make. They're getting to an interesting age and finding their real passions, Klein added. They've really gone into artwork right now. Their verbal skills continue to surprise me, and they're doing so well in school. It's fun to watch them grow. And for all that he and Arnold had put into building a family, he felt even more happy for what the kids had accomplished. After everything they've gone through, it's a very exciting time, Klein explained. Viewers of the little couple got to see some of those smiling moments unfold on camera, of course. But Klein told Glamour in 2015 that he and Arnold tried their best to keep Will and Zoe grounded, in spite of their on-screen appearances. The large majority of what we do is off-camera, because we want them to grow up in a normal, comfortable environment and experience what they want to experience without it being something they have to do in front of an audience, Klein claimed. Considering how well Zoe and Will apparently adjusted in the end, it seemed as though the couple's methods worked. That's good news, and Klein, Arnold, Will, and Zoe have seen their lives take on a new shape in recent years. Most notably, the family relocated from their home in Houston, Texas to a new one in Florida. At first, some viewers mistakenly credited the impetus for the move to Hurricane Harvey, which hit Houston in 2017. Instead, Arnold had received a job offer she couldn't turn down from the Johns Hopkins All-Children's Hospital in St. Petersburg. In fact, Arnold had been treated there as a young child, and now she serves as the medical director of its simulation center. The decision to leave Houston in the fall of 2017 proved to be a tough one for the family, but ultimately they felt they'd made the right choice. On the little couple, Klein said, "Well, there might be a little bit of remorse at the end of the day about the relocation from Houston. This is going to be a good move for everybody." He went on to outline the upside of life in Florida for himself, Arnold, and their 2 children. "There are so many big benefits to moving to Florida," Klein stated. "We'll be closer to family." Nonetheless, he admitted that the transition with Zoe and Will would make the move a bit tougher. Looking for a house is not an easy task. Looking for a house with 2 kids, nearly impossible. Of course, Will and Zoe look at a move from their familiar home with trepidation. As we've heard, both had trouble transitioning to life in America when they first arrived. Arnold told People in 2019 that the kids had felt a little concerned about Houston. As usual, though, the close-knit family made it through. "They've adjusted really, really well," Arnold said.